All right, today we're going to be looking at state tests and kind of give you a recap of how my kids did this year. I'm very, very proud of them. And also where I think state testing should be or where it's heading in the state of Ohio. First year in a new school. I know a lot of the teachers there. That when I came there, I did my student teaching there a long time ago. It's a very good school. It's a good environment and everything else. And I wanted to prove myself. I think I'm a good teacher. I try to do things the right way and try to do what's best for all the students. So I was very, very pleased with the results when I got those back. And kind of looking at my students, and I'm kind of analyzing and going through all my students. I even write down all of my stuff about how much they improved and how many points or how many levels. And if you're not familiar with some of the levels, it basically goes basic or limited, basic, proficient, accelerated, and then advanced in the state of Ohio. They may have similar things at other states. So I was very, very happy. I had about 69 kids tested this year. I had 69 kids tested, and they did very well. I had only 5 students who did not improve point-wise. I had a lot of students improve point-wise, so I would like to see more than I did. But generally, most of my students did very, very well. They improved, they maintained or got better. Some other good things about them was that I had 40 kids. 40 kids improved 1 level or 2. I had 9 kids who improved 2 levels. And so 31 kids who improved 1 level. So in other words, they went from maybe a basic to a proficient, or they went from accelerated to advanced, and some kids skipping 2. And there was a couple of students I was very, very proud of. They went from limited to proficient. They went 2 spaces, so I'm very, very happy about those kids. They worked hard, so seeing that hard work pay off for them, I hope they are very proud of it. And excited about what they've done, because they did work their hearts out and did a really good job. I'm very proud of those students. Another thing I was very, very proud of is there were only 3 kids in the previous year who were advanced, and that I was able to help teach these kids and help them achieve some goals this year, and they went from 3 kids to 21, which is huge. So I had some pretty good scores in there, and I was very excited to see it. And once again, I cannot be prouder of my students. The only bad thing is that we didn't meet the state requirement to pass, which is an 80% passage rate. We only got 70%, but that was an improvement upon the previous year as far as the percentage of that. And I was very, very happy to see that improvement. But the school and me, that we don't get the point for passage rate, and it kind of gets into some things that kind of bother me about state testing. 80% is the passage rate needed for that, but yeah, more and more schools are going to a grading scale of 60% for passing a class. So there's some things that bother me. I don't like the 60%. First of all, I like the traditional 70% as a passage, and I think 70% should be at that. Now, I'm not saying that just because we score a 70%. I just think it's a little bit, 80% is a high mark, and it's definitely achievable. This is the first time I've ever been part of a grade level that's never accomplished at least 80%. In my past 9 years, I've always achieved that in math or science, and this is the first year I've never done that. Now, once again, I think it should be 70%. I think that's a good rate where your students are passing and you're achieving your goals. Looking at that, I looked at my kids grew, and they learned things this year, and they grew in their mathematical thinking and practice, and hopefully it carries on next year, and they improve upon the score again. So, I don't think necessarily a percentage always tells the whole story. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the public are going to look at them, oh, they got 70%, they didn't pass. And they're not going to see the actual growth that these students did. And that really bothers me. My students worked their butt off. I worked my butt off, and to see the gains that my students did, it's huge. And I don't feel that it necessarily truly gives a good picture of what my students did this year, coming down to that 70%. My general thoughts on state testing. I know a lot of teachers are like, they hate the state testing and wish it all be gone. I unfortunately don't feel that way. I do feel that we are over testing our kids. I do think state testing is necessary at certain points and certain avenues during their time. I think we spend way too much money on state tests. Just give you, in the state of Ohio, I believe they're just signing a bill now to pass that social studies 4th and 6th grade social studies tests will be taken away again. So before it was taken away, I believe it used to be in 8th grade, and they got rid of it. And really it comes down to is cost saving measures because they don't want to spend that money. And social studies is looked at as a non-valuable subject area, I guess, which is ridiculous because it's very, very, very valuable. And that's one of the other problems with state testing is it devalues other classes. It devalues those other classes that don't have state tests, that they're not as important. And that's so not true. I know math and language arts are always tested almost every single year since 4th grade. And they're valuable subject areas, but there's more to developing a child than just math and science and just looking at those subject areas. And I know they have a huge impact on multiple different facets of a person's career and their life, but so does art, so does music, so does science, so does history, so do many other classes that they should be taking. Maybe computer science and stuff like that, where there's logic and reasoning and math is involved in that stuff. So I just think state tests kind of devalues other classes, and I don't think that's fair to those teachers and to those students that for the pressure of it. I do think there's too much state testing, and once again, my opinion is worth a nickel basically, but you can take it as you want. I do think there should be state testing to see where the kids are improving and how they're improving, but not as much as we're doing it now. Every single year it's math, language arts, and we're measuring ourselves to other people in all the districts and seeing who's doing what and so forth. I do think it has been good as far as professional development and pushing teachers to become better, but once again you still get some of those devaluing of subject areas, and so some teachers who don't have a test, they're doing their job and they're doing well, but maybe they're just looked at as just don't get in the way, and that's not fair to them and not fair to their students. So a solution that I would think would be best is instead of spending so much money on state testing and everything else, I still want some state testing. I think there should be maybe like a 3rd grade and an 8th grade and a junior in high school test to see where the kids are at and see how they're doing in order to graduate and to gauge our teaching and everything else. I think it'd be best wise is to refocus that money to actually developing our teachers and developing our classes, and not in the way that most people would think as far as professional development. I'd really like to see auditing happening with the state coming in every 5 years. Your school would get audited, and what they would do is they would look at evaluations. They would look at the teachers' unit plans and how they're making their tests and how they're evaluating their students. Are their tests covering the standards that are supposed to be taught? What is the data that they have on their students and how they show that the students are growing? Because I can show you in my classroom plenty of data that my students have gained knowledge in their area of mathematics, and they know the material, and they have a good, now solid foundation to move on to 8th grade from 7th grade. And I think auditing would be a little bit, is logistically a little bit more manpower and stuff like that, but you're still saving how much millions of dollars on state testing every year. And, that money can be spent that way. Instead of having to test and test and test and test again. It's very stressful for the students and stressful for administrations and teachers and communities. And it's not a positive atmosphere all the time. And there are positive things that come out of state testing, which is why I don't want to totally get rid of it. I think there's some good things about it, but when you do it year after year, it really kind of doesn't give the results that we want to be able to have. And once again, I get these results in the summertime, and these kids are moving on. They're moving on, and while they've done great and they've done really well, I can give it to the next year teachers and say, hey, here's some things here, but really to help those kids in these areas of weaknesses, I'm done with that. So those kids have moved on. They're moving on to another teacher, and that kind of defeats the purpose too a little bit. I know the other teacher can use it next year, and that helps them out. And I will do the same, but still, state testing, it's just way too overdone. And I would like to see some changes, but my changes will probably never happen. Once again, my opinion is not worth very much. But and I just like to finish off with this: is that my students this past year, they're great kids, and I told them before the test, I don't care what your score is on there, as long as you're a better person, and a score does not make who you are. And my kids, they worked really hard and they were determined. Some of my kids were like, I'm gonna get perfect score. I'm like, go for it, man. I didn't have any kids get a perfect score, but I had some really close kids who got really close to perfect score. And the score from the previous year where they actually gained like 85 points on their test score. And they were determined, hey, I'm going to do really well in this. And, that's all I can ask. And, those kids worked their butt off and they gave the best effort they could. And that's, as a teacher, that makes me proud. Not the fact that we didn't pass at 70%, but these kids grew, and they grew a lot. And that makes me very proud.